Dustin, good to see you. Today, we get to talk through the 6 questions you should ask an advisor before you retire. Now, of course, you do not need a relationship with an advisor before you retire, but we do recommend just making an appointment, sitting down with one to talk through these questions. And the first question to ask is pretty straightforward, it seems. Am I financially ready to retire?
Right. The key word being financially ready. So I'll often have a conversation with folks that come in who have pensions, and they might tell me, well, Dustin, I'm going to retire at 60 because that's when I can take my full pension benefits.
hmm
Well, just because you can take a pension, for example, at age 60, doesn't mean that you can continue the lifestyle that you've been accustomed to at age
Right.
60. Right. So we want to make sure that we understand you can afford to retire when you can continue your lifestyle as you're accustomed. And we've got a high degree of certainty that you're not going to run out of money before you and your spouse pass.
Right. The next question, what income sources will I rely on in retirement and how sustainable are they?
Right. So we want to take a look at and take inventory of all of your social security benefits for you and a spouse, your pension benefits. And then we want to take a good look at our lifestyle, a good solid estimate of what we anticipate that we'll be spending. So this is a visual representation of a plan that I recently ran. Represented in the green, what that is, that's social security and pension income, guaranteed sources of income. The red is the difference between that guaranteed income that's going to be coming in every month and every year and what we anticipate this client is going to be spending in retirement. Okay, so that red is what we would call the retirement gap. We're going to have to go to the investment portfolio to make withdrawals to fill that gap so that this client can continue living the lifestyle that they're accustomed to. And when we do this planning for anyone, we want to be certain that when we stress test the portfolio against this plan, that we've got a high degree of certainty, again, that the money's going to last, that they're not going to run out of money before retirement. If when we look at that plan and we stress test the portfolio, if that's not the case, if we're not highly confident the money's going to last, what it means is we've either got to have to adjust spending down and or work longer until that plan becomes sustainable with a high degree of confidence.
Right, because as we can see here, Dustin, if you need $10,000 a month in the beginning, it's not going to be $10,000 a month at the end.
Right. And that brings us to our next point. You want to make sure that you're planning for inflation and unexpected expenses. You can see that chart that curve bends up, right? And what that means is anytime we do this planning, we want to be conservative. So we're going to assume that the inflation that we experience is greater than the cost of living adjustments we get on pensions and Social Security.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
what that means is that retirement gap is a growing gap over time. It means greater and greater withdrawals from the portfolio each year.
Mhm.
We need to, again, stress test the portfolio and make sure it's going to stand up to that plan.
Mhm.
Also, there are a couple of things that can happen in retirement that happen to many people that can drastically change the shape of that curve immediately. You could have one spouse predecease the other spouse. In many cases, you'll lose pension income to the household, and you're going to go from 2 Social Security benefits down to 1 Social Security benefit. What that means is that retirement gap in red is going to immediately widen, and it's
Right.
going to remain wider for the rest of retirement. We don't run one financial plan, we run multiple financial plans and make sure if something like that happens, the plan still works. Likewise, if one spouse or the other, let's say in your 80s, has a long-term care event where we got to come up with another $400,000 or $500,000, we need to stress test the plan, stress test the portfolio, make sure the money's still going to last and that plan works out, especially works out for the spouse that's going to live longer in that scenario.
Mhm, mhm. And this leads into the next question because they are all related, Dustin. I think that's a little bit straightforward as we talk this through. What adjustments, if any, should I make to my investment portfolio?
Right. Well, I like to tell people that as you approach retirement and as you approach the point where you're spending the money, the math actually changes completely. So you shouldn't be using the same result. If we think about, for example, when we're an employee, when we're working and saving for retirement, we get to experience something called dollar cost averaging. And our employer actually helps with this in many cases if you got a match on your retirement plan. So you're putting money into that plan each and every month. Your employer's putting money into that plan. And when share prices go down, the volatility can actually be your friend. When share prices go down, if you're still funding that account, your employer's still funding that account, it means that you're buying more shares. So when those share prices recover, that phenomenon can actually help you compound that account more quickly as you approach retirement. But once we approach retirement, we approach the date where we're spending those assets, the opposite happens. Okay. You're no longer buying those shares, you're selling those shares to produce income. So if you get a significant drawdown, a deep drawdown on that account, it's not a buying opportunity. It won't help you compound the account more quickly. It means selling more shares to get the same money out of your investment portfolio. And that can help you deplete that account much more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So as we approach retirement, as we approach spending those assets instead of buying them, it means we've got to principal protect or hedge some portion of that portfolio. We got to introduce some kind of risk management on the portfolio to reduce the volatility and make that returns ride relatively more predictable and the results relatively more predictable.
Right. And then the last question asked, how can I minimize taxes on my retirement income?
Several things you can pay attention to. You want to get really good advice from a qualified advisor on claiming strategies with regard to Social Security. That's because up to 85% of your Social Security benefits under current law are going to be subject to income taxes. But 100% of the withdrawals you make from your 401k are subject to income taxes. That means in general, the more Social Security income you can build into your plan, the more tax efficient that you'll be. Okay. You want to make sure that you've got the right asset types inside the right accounts. Things like investments or savings that produce interest or coupon payments or actively traded strategies that could throw off a lot of capital gains. Those aren't assets generally that you want in non-qualified or taxable accounts. Those are great assets to put inside your IRAs or retirement accounts so that those returns will be sheltered from taxation while they're in the accounts. You want to make sure that you're making withdrawals from the right accounts in the right order. We don't have enough time to talk about that today, but I can tell you that a good advisor can help you be much more tax efficient by making withdrawals in the proper order. And you want to preserve the right accounts for your estate. So if we think about things like non-qualified brokerage accounts, those get a step up in basis upon death. That makes them tax efficient to inherit. Things like Roth IRAs are inherited by the beneficiaries tax-free. Both of those are much better vehicles for transferring an estate than leaving an IRA or a 401k to your beneficiaries where they're going to have to pay income taxes on 100% of the balance.
There's so much to consider. And Dustin, when you and I had the chance to talk it through, I just want to remind everybody watching, you specialize in retirement planning, which is such a unique puzzle to solve for people. And I know you enjoy it. So if somebody wants to talk through these questions with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Sure. Call or text 830-476-2505 or reach out on the website to book a free chat at longlivemymoney.com.
Great. Dustin, thank you.
Thanks, Erin.